The Soviets did not destroy the Nazi camps. They continued to use them after the war.
The agreement which Stalin made with the West affected the whole of Europe for the next 50 years. So, although you can say the crimes are of the same order, the political outcome at the end of the Second World War quite clearly was very different for those two dictatorships.
And it was also very different for the people of Western and Eastern Europe.
The Soviet Union transferred a lot of ethnic Russians into the occupied Baltic countries. It was a clear violation of Geneva Convention, which forbids the transfer of civilians into the occupied countries. For example, in 1945, it was a case of my grandparents' family which were forced by Soviet officers at the gunpoint out of their apartments. Afterwards, the Soviet officers settled there with their families.
The Kremlin strategically orchestrated ethnic cleansing in the Baltics, so that the Russian settlers became a majority in all the largest Baltic cities. Estonians, Latvians and Lithuanians were loaded onto cattle trucks and deported to Siberia. The tiny Baltic nations were brought to the brink of extinction. Deportations, executions and torture became the post-war reality for millions of people. Concentration camps were scattered throughout both Europe and Siberia. In many of them, horrific medical experiments were performed on humans. In Butugicag camp in Magadan, the KGB used thousands of prisoners as guinea pigs, experimenting with the human brain. Many of these prisoners were still alive during the experiments. All of this happened after Nazism was defeated and memorials made to its victims. The victims of the Soviet death camps were buried in numbered graves. There is no memorial here, just a pile of the shoes of murdered victims, shoes among them. Feeling complete impunity, the post-war KGB terrorized the population, letting loose their most beastly instincts.
Mēs izgājām ārā, un tur pie verandas bija liela asins peļķe. Tās asinis savācām stikla burkā, jo tā bija mūsu tēva dzīvība. Man ir grūti stāstīt, man tā kā uzplēst ir jauna rēta un tāda, ka lasiņo.
This was drawn by a KGB prison guard who had served for 33 years in the Soviet interior system. He was depicting his routine, everyday life. Who were these men? Who would do atrocities? Meet one of them. The notorious Yanis Dzintars. A KGB interrogator in the Soviet-occupied Latvia, he was particularly famous for his brutality towards women. The victims' testimonies paint an horrific picture of his interrogations. Female victims were beaten and tortured by several KGB officers continuously for 20 hours. Not everyone could endure it. The wife of Ernest Waltman, Veronika, was beaten and tortured by Dzintars and his drunk colleagues for 4 days. She finally committed suicide by hanging herself in the prison cell. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Dzintars fled to Russia. The Kremlin refuses to extradite him, calling him an honorable veteran. With the hands of these KGB veterans, the Soviet Union terrorized and tortured innocent people. They were the ones who guarded death camps, where millions were exterminated and thousands used in horrific medical experiments. Many of these death camp veterans are still alive. Unlike their SS colleagues, they are proud of what they did. They are proud of the Soviet Union, which let them do it.
Прежде всего следует признать, и об этом я уже говорил, что крушение Советского Союза было крупнейшей геополитической катастрофой века. Крупнейшей геополитической катастрофой века.
Никому не хочется сознавать, что твои предки были преступниками банальными. Я думаю, в этом дело.
I think that Russia, as a successor of the Soviet Union, is obliged to carry out a real investigation of all the crimes and the character of their system. And I think up to now they are not ready and not able to do it.
Under Gorbachev and Yeltsin, the crimes of the Soviet Union were at least not advertised.
Under President Putin, we see a very different approach. The idea that Russia continues, in a sense, in the footsteps of the Soviet Union, and any attack on the Soviet Union is an attack on modern Russia.
The Russian identity has been shaped up by the sense of being parts of a big empire. When they lost the empire, they couldn't remain the same.
Вот эта ущербность, национальное унижение, то, что в Германии было после Первой мировой войны, а у нас после распада, это огромная питательная почва для вот этих вот новых нацистов, понимаете? Это как раз то, что было и дало всплеск в Германии к фашизму.
Со времен прихода Путина к власти, практически с конца 90-х годов, с началом Второй Чеченской войны, идет массовая ксенофобская пропаганда сверху. И у людей, в общем-то, появляется такая ненависть к инородцам, людям другого языка, другой веры, к другим странам.
The former Russian defense minister Radionov again.
Практически все российские СМИ работают против России и народа, так как находятся в руках еврейской мафии.
And the next speaker is Mr. Rogozin of Russia. Mr. Rogozin, you have the floor.
Я работаю в Федеральном собрании России.
Mr. Rogozin led the Russian delegation in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. He repeatedly voiced his concern about the rebirth of fascism in Europe. At home, his agenda was a little different. The pre-election clip of his party.
Понаехали тут.
Подними, и бери с собой.